It's Northern Tier Wrestling down in Towanda, Pennsylvania. Generation Now right here in Towanda. The very special guest here today and also on NBC Elmira and WrestlingInc.com, Lanny Poffo, the genius. And Lanny, this is awesome seeing you here today, out there talking to a lot of the future of the business and the industry, the students. What great messages you had today.
Well, Elmira, that name conjures up thoughts of prison. Is that true?
That is true. It's up there.
Yes, I remember. Anyway, no, 10 arrests, no convictions, perfect record. Don't worry about it.
I was like,
never even been kept after school.
That's the truth. But today, what is the significance for you talking to the students and the future of the business? I know that a lot of great questions from each of them out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't help but feel grateful that so many of the old timers were nice to me. You don't know these names, but men like Lord Layton, Thunderbolt Patterson, they're not here living anymore, but they took a little time to be kind to a young mind, and it was very nice of them, and I would like to do the same thing for them. Now that I've reached this stage in my life where I check the obituaries every morning, and if I'm not in there, I go back to bed.
Right. Absolutely. And certainly so much can be said about your career. We were talking earlier about Saturday night's main event. Through your career from the Frisbees with Leap and Lanny, your opportunities, the Poffo family, so legendary in pro wrestling. For you to get the opportunities that you've gotten and looking back on your career now, what a blessed career.
That's right. There's only one man smart enough to put Hulk Hogan down. The genius has a devastating plan. You're looking at the future World Wrestling Federation, who appeals to the modern thinking fan. When I emerge victorious with gold around my waist, I shall be the most splendiferous of all. Don't tell me Hulk is 6'8" and I'm just 6'2". Between the ears, I'm over 10 feet tall. He wants to wrap his 24-inch pythons around my neck and give his famous, "What you gonna do?" By the power of the genius and the world's smartest man, I'll rely on my incredible IQ. Thank you.
Wow, that was on point as always, just like it was back certainly in wrestling boom in the 1980s and 90s. But you mentioned having one of the poems. I mean, how did that come about? Obviously, so intellectual, such a smart person. Definitely the smartest guy to ever grace Northern Tier Wrestling.
Well, thank you so much, but my fifth grade teacher actually says, "Lanny, that paper you wrote was just wonderful." And I said, "Baby, you ain't seen nothing yet." Casey and the Sunshine Boys, I think.
Yeah.
But that wasn't invented yet, but this is back way long ago. So let's see. I also, in 1977, was wrestling in Nashville, and I met Shel Silverstein. And he invited me out, we talked, and then I saw him again in the Miami airport when I was just coming back from the Dominican Republic. And so he had a tremendous influence on my poetry, see, and he encouraged me, and what a nice man. And I was thinking, so lucky to have a teacher like that and a great author that befriended me and made me believe that I could entertain people with that type of writing.
And that certainly spilled over into the wrestling business as well. I think it was so different, the genius character in the 1980s, and I still remember it very well. Got some tapes and things like that. But when you went out there, it was almost like you not belittled your opponent, but just outthought them.
Well, I was influenced by Peter Sellers in The Pink Panther. It was a one-joke movie. I knew that, you idiot. I was only testing you. And he's always trying to get his dignity back, and he has none. And he wasn't that smart, but he thought he was. And he said, "Of course, everything I do is perfectly planned." It wasn't. So I thought, well, if it was good enough for the Pink Panther, the formula must work. And at that time, all the heels were serious heels. I went and murdered a bum. And I thought, why do I want to be just another serious heel? They can have one comedian, and that would be me.
Yeah, you look back at so many great moments. Obviously, Macho Man Randy Savage, your brother, and you having the opportunity to put him in the Hall of Fame as well. It's a wonderful speech. You talked about how far you guys came as a family and the Poffo family as well. Looking back, what was that honor like for you to put Randy in?
Not only was it a great honor, what really touched me was right in sequence after the speech, after all the lights had been gone and everybody had left the building, one after the other, Roddy Piper and Dusty Rhodes gave me a hug and said what a great speech it was. And I said, the two greatest interviews that ever lived have just given me the greatest praise I've ever had. Thank you. It meant a lot coming from those two. And then the very next year, neither one of them was alive.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so the lesson is, if you have something nice to say it now. You don't know if I'll be here next or if you're not going to be here next. You know, you came an hour to drive here, you know, it doesn't have to be your fault. Some jerk can just run you off the road. Right. You know, and so life is fragile. So if you can spread a little joy or a little love, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, Lanny. And, you know, the promos, and there it is right there. Check out that ring, live in living color right in that video scope. But like Macho used to say, in the video scope, in the video scope. And you were credited, too, with not just helping Randy with his promo, but both of you guys were just so good on the microphone, certainly back at that time, to help transcend that boom of wrestling. How did you guys figure out that promo style, and what did you take from each promo and studied?
Okay, well, the first time Randy wrestled, you could tell he was going to be the greatest in-ring performer you ever saw. But he only had one problem. He was too skinny, and he didn't look like a wrestler. He was very muscular as a baseball player, but when he got in the ring, of course, in those days, wrestlers were a little bit fat.
Yeah,
and,
bigger guys, yeah.
Yeah, and they jiggled a bit, okay?
King Kong Bunny. Right.
Well, yes. Okay. But I like him. You know, he's one of the best big men in the business. But what happened was, so he decided to work hard on his physique. Finally, he's got his physique up to par. Now he looked like a main eventer. One trouble, the missing piece in the puzzle, no confidence with his interviews. He even had anxiety attacks and panic attacks where your heart races and you can't catch your breath. Oh, I got an interview. So he says, Lanny, can you help me with my interviews? And, you know, he never asked me for help about anything. He always gave help. So I said, well, first of all, you're doing great. He said, no, I'm not doing great. I got to do better. I said, well, if your name is Savage and you wrestle like a savage and your hair is like a savage and your beard is like a savage, who's your favorite Savage interview? Let's copy him. Well, I think it's between Curtis Iaukea and probably Pampero Firpo. I said, well, remember when Firpo was in Hawaii and we were in Hawaii and they did a tag? He says, of course he was from Argentina.
Right.
That was his accent. He goes, you are watching #1 station in Hawaii. Oh, yeah. I said, let's see you read that. You are watching the #1 station in Hawaii. Ooh, yeah. I said,
that's it.
He's got it. I said, and then he spent the next 3 months in the bathroom mirror, and I promise you, when he came out of that bathroom mirror, he was the best interview you'd ever heard in your life. And he made himself, that was his breakthrough, and I feel good about it. But then he took it and ran with it and developed a personality that nobody's going to ever forget.
Yeah, definitely won't forget that. Certainly a personality won't be touched for many, many times. You've had imitators, but there's only one, Macho Red, Randy Savage. Yeah. But Lanny, just a couple more quick questions here for NCW Wrestling, Wrestling Inc., and also NBC Elmira is, you know, right now you're helping the future. And looking back on so many great moments and memories of your career, but what is it about today's audience that's different, and also today's performer that has to be different as compared to, you know, the 70s and 80s and Tennessee and all the territories you had a chance to go through in Memphis?
Well, there's some differences, but there's a lot of similarities. Number one, the show must go on. No show, no dough. And I was afraid of missing a show. So I got there early, and because you never know. And even if I missed this show, I'd be afraid of maybe my brother and my father might meet me in the great beyond and say, yeah, you missed that show in Towanda. Right. Real bad. You know, and that would make me sad because the number one thing is you say you're going to be there, you better show up. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, excellent, Lanny. And I know that things have changed. Certainly, the WWE now with the network, you see a whole different, I guess, generation exposed to Saturday Night's Main Event, the Genius, the Scrolls, the Frisbees, everything. That going that way now with the future, is that the best thing to keep this art form alive, the network? I mean, it's growing every day. Do you have a chance to check it out? Do you have a chance to check out a lot of the stuff that's on today?
I'd like to say yes, but the truth is, I've been binge watching Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's a good tell.
Yes, and I'm pretty much into that right now. So, it's hard to follow that with some wrestling. So
it is. And one of the things you mentioned today, you actually auditioned for a very popular show that's on TV today.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to.
Oh, you're going to audition?
Yes, I'm going to, and it's we'll keep it zipped right now.
Okay, yeah, we won't. We won't reveal that
because,
today.
The thing is, I've been promised more things than I've received in my life, and I don't like to boast until it's past. You see what I mean?
Right.
And right now it's just, if you don't have a dream, how are you going to have a dream come true? So I dream a lot. And I'm going to be 63 in December, and I breathe in and out, and every day is a miracle, and I treat it like, what would I do for the bucket list today? And that's why I expand the map.
Excellent, Lanny. And final thing is, I got something here. Before I read this special poem that I actually tried to write myself today for you, any final messages out there to the dreamers, the believers? I know you mentioned today to the students today that you've only lost if you haven't tried.
Right. I would like to say, too many wrestlers and citizens are into pleasure, power, and possession, the 3 Ps we call them. I'm not into pleasure, power, and possession. I'm into health, wealth, and freedom. And all 3 are worth fighting for. So that's what I have. If you were going to sum it up, be humble when victorious, be noble in defeat, be there when your neighbor hasn't got enough to eat, try to love your enemy, and always be aware that World Cup or Super Bowl, the tortoise beats the hare. Thank you.
Awesome. Lanny Poffo, thank you so much for joining us right here, WrestlingInc.com, NBC Elmira, also NTW today. Going to tear down the
Go ahead,
house.
read that.
All right, I'm going to read this real quick. I wrote a little something, thought about you today, certainly the last couple of days when we knew this was going to happen. So this is what I call the genius, obviously, hence the nickname. The genius. The man is here, the smartest wrestler ever to grace the Northern Tier. His father is Angelo. His brother is Macho. Oh yeah, dig it. Angelo broke the Guinness mark with sit-ups, with so much more to go. Whatever you do from here, listen to the genius. He knows Frisbees, moonsaults, and now NTW. It's here, it's now, it's the Northern Tier. So stand up and cheer. The genius is here.
NTW, oh yeah. Dig it.